Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new podcast series from AI Academy. I'm Helene, your host, and I lead all partnership activities working closely with our corporate partners. As the AI Academy team, we believe that AI is a tool that every organization can use. It's a tool that empowers teams to work on what they need and also what they want. So we're wondering what would happen if every team could understand AI and had access to the right tools. Our mission here is to give them these tools and find out. While we do that, we collaborate with a lot of different companies from different industries and different backgrounds. And along the way, we meet great people who bring AI in their organization. And we also witness different case studies. So what we wanted to do with this podcast is to bring some of the people here and share the conversations that we have with them, with you, with the community. For today's episode, for the first episode, we're going to have the founder of AI Academy, Gianluca Mauro, who is joining us to talk about what happened in the past year in AI. Hi, Gianluca. How are you today?
Ciao, Helen. Doing well. Very busy, very tired, but super excited.
I can imagine. Well, thank you for taking time and coming to have this conversation with me. I was thinking, since we started this podcast series, we already have a lot of interesting conversations within each other when we're working with the team. So it would be great to bring this conversation and share it with the community as well. That I want to ask you, what happened in the past year in AI? No, it's a big question, but let's sum it up.
Oh my God, it's been insane. I've been working on AI for almost 10 years, right? AI Academy, I think I founded it in 2016, I think. And we've done so many different things. And so I've seen AI change so much, but I've never seen such a crazy development as in the last year. I think everything started the 30th of November, 2022, when ChatGPT got introduced. And so the wild thing is that ChatGPT, from a technical point of view, is not a crazy leap forward. I mean, in the end of the day, is still a large language model. There were already other large language models out there in the past. GPT-3 is not substantially different from ChatGPT. But what happened was that ChatGPT felt more natural. It felt real. It felt human, like a magic experience. And so I think that made a lot of people wake up and made a lot of people interested. And it became so much easier also to integrate it, since OpenAI released an API, which is basically, for people that don't know what an API is, imagine that you want to develop a technology based on ChatGPT, based on that kind of AI algorithms. Well, OpenAI basically tells you, hey, I have these algorithms, I have this technology. You can simply use my technology and put that in your product, in a very simple way. That's what an API is. And so in the past year, we've seen hundreds, thousands probably of startups, of organizations taking that technology and putting that into their systems, into their products, and waking up to all the opportunities that you have. However, and this is something I actually want to know what you think about that as well, because you're very involved in this too. I feel like there's a disconnect between all the crazy development in terms of products and technology we've seen in the last year and what companies are doing. I don't think AI has penetrated yet the workforce and the way that companies operate as much as people think it has.
Yeah,
Does that make
definitely. I
sense?
would agree with that. And I think the main issue here is the pace of things. I mean, OpenAI just announced crazy stuff 2 days ago, it was. So it's very hard to catch up when it comes to when we talk about companies with 50,000 employees.
Two
There's
days ago,
always
yeah.
someone who's very interested, who wants to start using the new technologies, push things forward within the company. But then you need to also bring other departments with you. You need to also convince the stakeholders. I think that's the real thing that takes a lot of time.
100%, 100%. I think what we're seeing is there's two different speeds: the speeds of development and the speed of adoption. They're not the same, okay? Even though we have a feeling that everybody's using AI and everybody's talking about AI, then once I think
True.
me and you and all the AI Academy team really have a privileged position to see what's going on, because basically we talk to companies of all sides and all sizes and shapes and industries, and then we hear what they are actually doing. And this is, by the way, I feel like a lot of times when I say this, people think that I am kind of talking negatively about other companies and saying, oh, they're slow. No, I don't have a negative attribution to being
Yeah.
slow. I think it's just a physiological reality. Like, you need time to change the way that you work. You need time even just to understand whether you can use those tools or not, and do the procurement and understand whether they're safe. There's so many little things that need to happen for companies to adopt these tools. And one big thing is not clear for a lot of people is that the use cases for ChatGPT and all this technology are not clear yet. So the biggest hurdle right now is that companies see this. They're like, wow, this is crazy. But what the hell do I do with it? it's not clear. Like there are some applications, of course, we know you can use it for marketing content, for instance, but the devil is in the details. Yes, you can use it to do marketing content. Cool. Are you gonna retrain your entire marketing department to use it? What are these people gonna do with the new time they have available? How do you make sure that the content you are spitting out is still good? How do you measure that by switching from humans to AI generated content, the quality and the engagement is still the same? So you see what I'm saying? Like the use cases are not clear. And even if they are clear, there are so many details that need to be figured out before you can just say to a giant company, hey, go and adopt this and now everybody's going to use it. It takes a while.
It feels like it's a big cultural change that needs to happen because what I see with companies as well, I talk to so many people who want to bring AI in their company somehow. And some of these people see the use cases, they're interested, and it's almost like people pointing out something, saying, I want that one because I like it and it looks really cool. But without the real questioning and the reasoning behind of, would that actually fit my company? Is that going to solve a problem that I have? So that part
Yeah.
comes from the mindset shift that you always talk about as well when we work with companies.
100%. But I think going back to your original question, what happened in last year? I think there was a. Actually, this is a fun exercise. Let's just try to go month by month. I feel like December was the shock month.
Mhm.
And when ChatGPT came out, it went crazy viral. I think it reached 1 million users in 5 days or something like that. And
Mhm.
everybody was talking about it. I had trouble sleeping. I'm not joking. This is not a metaphor. I will wake up in the middle of the night and because I was thinking about stuff. I know my brain was sleeping but was also thinking. This happens often to me. Like when I have something that goes in my head, I dream about it. Tonight I dreamt about the latest announcement that OpenAI has done 2 days ago. Yeah, I know, I'm a bit crazy. And I will wake up in the night and then open Twitter and just see what the hell happened in the past 4 hours, you know? And there was usually a lot of stuff. Like you will find people on Twitter that had built crazy integration that sounded like sci-fi. It seemed like we were living in the future suddenly, from one day to another. And that was December. I will say also January, probably. I think in February, it's when at least I went from observing to building and just actively trying to play with these tools, build stuff with these tools. And that gave me a much deeper understanding both of the opportunities but also of the limitations. And I think that's what we did also as a company in AI Academy. We started doing a few more things related to generative AI. I think we had a very cautious approach where we decided to not rush and not say, hey, here's the prompt library, download 100 prompts. But instead, we kind of waited to understand what is this about? How does it work? And then we launched something. I think in April, we launched the Master in Prompt Engineering, if I'm not mistaken. I think May, maybe. Oh gosh, I feel like the last few months just got April or May, something like that. And we sold it out. And so we saw suddenly the interest of people that wanted to join this. After that, I started seeing corporations wanting also to buy training programs and to understand what the hell is this AI revolution. I don't know you, but I felt that from May, June on, companies also went from observing to I think we need to understand what this is. Not doing really, because like they didn't start building stuff. Like it's, I think a very few of the organizations we work with had already built stuff, built prototypes by then. But they started at least asking themselves, okay, what is the future of my organization given that ChatGPT and then generative AI exists? I think that's happened around June, May, June. The last few months have been like training, 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 training. A lot of it has been kind of crazy. Like I think we've done so many trainings, so much education from a B2C perspective, from a B2B perspective. We've done so many things. And now I recently launched another startup called Epiphany, which we're gonna talk about in the future, I guess. But so I went even more into building. I think if I look at, especially at the announcement that OpenAI has made 2 days ago, which we're gonna talk about soon, I think what has happened really is that some things have become more solid, more known. In the beginning, there was so much uncertainty. What is this going to be useful for? How are we going to use it? How are we going to interact with it? There are a lot of questions that are still open, but not as many as some time ago. A lot of things are more clear. I think it's clear what are the limitations. It's clear what are the some good use cases. It's clear that some of those limitations are going to go away soon, but it's clear that some of them are not really going to go away soon. It's clear that some user experiences are nice and interesting, and it's clear that some others are a little bit, they still have to be developed, let's put it that way. I feel safer in starting a company, for instance, and betting hard on this. So I think that's what has very short summary of the past year. So much has happened, right? It feels like a different lifetime. Can you believe there was a time a year ago when ChatGPT did not exist?
It feels like it was forever ago. I just feel like it already existed. I
Right?
don't know. Maybe it's because since we work with it, we talk about it so often, I feel like it's been around for such a long time. But I do also see in the past months, there was also a shift within the companies where I realized when you were in the building phase, when right after ChatGPT, I think a lot of people in the company started questioning how to bring it to the company. But after June, July, when we said people started doing stuff, then the question that the companies were
Yeah.
asking changed because it wasn't what I can do with AI anymore, but it was more how can I stay up to date? How can I bring the company at a level where I can continue innovating and implementing new AI tools without being left behind? Because also companies understood if you do one thing, one project with AI, and then you're happy with it, great. But in the meantime, the whole industry has changed. There are new technologies again. I feel that almost panic feeling from companies of keeping their employees and themselves up to date and constantly doing something that involves AI.
That is so true. I think, I mean, I don't know if panic is the right emotion. I feel like some of them for sure feel a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. But then a lot of them are also just excited. They just say, whoa, this is really an opportunity. Let's do something about this. I think we have a few clients that said this could actually change our industry. Let's step in and do it. Let's explore it. Let's see if it's possible. Rather than saying, shit, this is gonna change our industry. What are we gonna do? Oh my god, we're all gonna lose our jobs. I think there's a lot of excitement too. But I think you're totally right. I love this thing that you said. Let's think about the questions that we get asked when we talk to clients for the first time. And you're right. At the beginning, like in May, it was we need to understand what this is. And now that's rare. Like we still get that question, but mostly we get questions like now we need to understand how do we use it? How do we deploy it? How do we? Yesterday we were doing no, was it 2 days ago? We were doing a training in Zurich to a philanthropic organization, and we got fairly deep into like what can we do now. I think at some point we showed a process automation that we have within AI Academy, and people were saying, "How can I do the same within my company?" And if you think about it, if we just stop for 1 second and think about this question, how can I build that process automation within my company compared to, hey, what is ChatGPT? It's a whole different level, right? It shows that right now companies are not asking themselves anymore, should we use this thing? They know that they have or should use this technology. The question is more about either how, so what are the use cases, once again, or okay, I have some use cases in mind, but how do I actually make the first step? So the questions have changed a lot, which shows that the industry has changed a lot. I think there are different speeds in general. Like the OpenAI speed is like they're thinking about 5 to 10 to 20, 30, 50 years ahead, obviously. And we as AI Academy need to be in the middle. We need to see where companies are today, but we need to also be a little bit more into the future because we need to help companies move faster, right? There's different speeds, definitely. I think corporations are the ones that are maybe a little bit, slower. We're saying that, big companies have problems, but it's not that small companies are have an easy time either. Maybe let's use a different word. Let's say non-tech companies that are not deeply rooted into technology. They're a little bit behind. We are not really a tech company because we don't build technology, but we need to act and think like a tech company so that we can help everybody else. And then there's the super tech companies like OpenAI that are just in a different space, in a different time.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, it feels like the thing that takes time the most for companies, big or small, is to decide where to start. Once they start,
Yeah.
it's fairly easier to understand who's going to be involved, what is going to be done. But until they get to that point, I see a lot of struggling, a lot of brainstorming.
Yeah, which to me is so funny because it's to me so obvious where you start. You start with education, right? No, you start with understanding what the hell we're talking about. You start with giving people the tools to understand what this big revolution is. You start by giving people the tools to interact with ChatGPT in a way that makes sense. You know what is so funny? Every time that I meet somebody that says, "Oh, I use ChatGPT," or I say ChatGPT because it's the most famous tool, like any AI tool. Every time somebody says, "Oh, I tried ChatGPT," let's say, and it was not that good, I ask, "Can you show me what you did? Like, what did you do? What does it mean for you? I tried it." And usually it's like, I sent one message, two. And the message was write a post about, I don't know, physiotherapy, whatever that is. I have a friend who's a physiotherapist and he's using it to help him with marketing. It was bad. And I'm like, well, no shit. Like your prompt was really bad. Number one, so you don't know how to use the tool. Number two, I think you should use it a little bit more than just two messages. Like this thing is basically the most powerful technology we ever had available at that scale, you know? So I think it takes a little bit more time. So for me, it's obvious that the first step is education. If you help your employees actually spend a little bit more time, like 2 days ago in Zurich, we asked people, hey, did you ever try ChatGPT? And everybody said, yes, I tried it. Then we spent, I think, 2 hours roughly doing exercises together, guided with me and you. And it was, to me, I don't know your opinion, but to me, it was amazing to see them after 2 hours. All of them had a complete different view of how to use it and the potential of this technology. 2 hours investment is nothing. You know, oh, we don't have time. Everybody has 2 hours to spare in the next month to try to understand a new technology, you know? And I used this metaphor with them. I said, well, it's if you say I don't have time, it's like if you say, well, I'm in a car and I'm going somewhere on I need to get somewhere. I'm in a rush and I have a flat tire. So you're driving at 30 kilometers an hour because you have a flat tire and you say, oh shit, I don't have time to get out of the car and change the tire because I'm in a rush. But you're going at 30 kilometers an hour. Maybe you should stop 1 second, change the tire, and then start again at 100. That's what I tell to companies that say, oh, we need to figure out what to do, but we don't know where to start. We don't have time to do a long training. Like, well, you're missing out. You're missing out. But I think a lot of it is about control. I think a lot of companies struggle with the idea of, I'm going to do an educational program and I'm not sure what's going to happen after, which I understand. But that's the truth of it. Like, you need to train people, give them the tools, and then you need to trust the process. Trust that if you create a space for people to experiment, they're going to come up with the use cases. They're going to come up with ideas, right? You need to let go a little
Yeah.
bit.
I think it comes really natural.
100%, it comes natural.
I think it comes natural once people are feeling the power of the technology on their fingertips, as we always mention. My favorite part of our trainings, which we've done in the past, is when we have a bunch of people in a room who is trying to come up with something with ChatGPT. We're using ChatGPT because it's the most well-known tool. But there, I realize where we tell people that they can get different results out of it by using it in a different way, but the learning doesn't happen. The learning happens within the behavior, right? So when people are in the room and everyone is using the same tool and getting different outputs, I see in people's eyes that's the point where they say, okay, it's about how I use it, it's about what I do with it. So I think that's a very valuable thing to get people started.
Yeah, yeah. I think I mean, I feel like now we're talking about our trainings, but I think it's a great like excuse to kind of tell people what happens when you actually give people we give your employees, give your team an opportunity to experiment. 2 days ago in Zurich, we've done this test, which is the first time, by the way, that I do, and I think it was really interesting. So we were in a room with 21 people, and all of them had different background. There were people that worked in communication, people that were hedge fund managers, like people had knew a bunch of different things, right? And so I asked them to create a blog post about AI in the non-for-profit sector using ChatGPT, knowing that nobody there was an expert about AI specifically in that industry. And all of them were like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And then I said, "Okay, but you don't know about this topic. So now pick something you're an expert in. If you're a hedge fund manager, pick hedge fund managing as a topic, and use ChatGPT to write something." And then obviously everybody was a bit disappointed because they knew that topic really, really well. And then we said, okay, cool. Now let's use a completely different approach. Because right now we're asking ChatGPT to take our job in with air quotes, to do exactly what we would do in a normal workday and do it, alone without our guidance, let's say. Now let's try to use it as a co-pilot instead. And so I gave them a different process, which is very simple. The people who are watching this video or listening to the podcast can try it by themselves as well. Instead of asking to write a blog post about any topic you're an expert in, baking, fashion, whatever that is, dog walking, pick whatever you want. Instead of asking to write the whole thing, ask to write an outline, just to write the topics that it's going to cover, and then give feedback. Think, topic number 2 doesn't really make sense. It's not that relevant because you are the expert, right? So you know what's relevant and what's not. And so once you have, given it feedback and produce an outline, not the full blog post. It's really hard to steer. Steerability is the word that we use in AI. It's really hard to steer in a big chunk of text. Start with something small, just an outline. It's much easier to steer, to change. After you're happy, ask it to write the first paragraph, basically. So the first section, and then give it feedback. Say, I want it to be more funny, more professional. Add more jokes, less jokes, whatever. Add, you didn't talk about this topic, etc., etc. See how you're gonna feel like you're not being replaced. This AI thing is not competing with you, with air quotes, but it's your co-pilot. And one other thing that I love, this is the bonus tip. Bonus tip. This is how I use it very often. I'm not a writer. I wrote a book and it was a crazy pain. I think I'm decent at writing, but it's not my main thing. I sometimes love it. I think writing is really nice for me to clear my head, but sometimes I don't have time or I don't want to focus on writing. And so I have some thoughts in my head, but they come out very unstructured, very not well phrased, let's say. And so I use ChatGPT in that way. I just type something like, oh, I want to write a blog post about how AI is going to disrupt healthcare. I think it's going to be really helpful for, I don't know, let's say patients to get better care, but also doctors to be more efficient. I don't know, something like that, but blah, blah, blah. You just type something as a train of thought, some Kafka uh, kind of vibe. And then you just put it there and ask ChatGPT to rewrite it and give shape to your thought. Oh my god, that's so cool, and it's such a great use case. We saw the people in the room changing completely their mindset. There was one person who was, you know who I'm talking about, who was a little bit skeptical in the beginning. So he had a lot of remarks saying, "Oh, but it doesn't really work. Oh, but this is so problematic. Oh, but it has hallucinations." After he experienced that way of working with it, he completely changed his outlook on the technology. This is my favorite part of trainings, when you see people, something clicks and then they start using the technology in a completely different way.
I think that click most of the time is people understanding this is not magic. Because from the LinkedIn posts, the things that we see online everywhere, people who don't use ChatGPT or
Yeah.
any other tools in their daily life, when they try it, the expectation is so high because you're expecting magic. So once you break that, which happens again with education, people start understanding, okay, then if I give feedback, if I do that, if I clarify the context a little more, then I can get a better output. Then people are happier with the output because they know that it's a technology working behind, it's not magic. And that's a very important line to draw when using the technology as well.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And I think there are two other aspects to this. One is people, like, you get an understanding of how the technology works and what you get out of it the more you use it. So a big part of my work is to try to simplify my intuitions around this technology. Obviously, for me, it's easier than for, somebody who doesn't have a technical understanding to control these technologies, because I know what's happening behind the scenes, because I use it a lot, because it's my job to learn how to use these technologies and teach it back, right? So I developed an intuition of what I'm going to get if I do something. And a lot of the things that I do is try to come up with frameworks that pass this intuition to people. The CD framework, this framework that we came up with for writing good prompts, that has been used all over the world now. It's so funny. I keep seeing people on LinkedIn that say, "Oh, I taught the CD framework in my class. Thank you, Jaluga." So it has spread a lot. But that was me trying to rationalize an intuition that I had. People can develop their own intuition by using it. It doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes a bit more, but in 2 hours you can already get something, you know? So that's number one. They develop their own intuition of what this thing is. And once you understand something, stop fearing it. And that's number two. Number two is a lot of people are afraid of losing control. We as human beings want to keep control of really anything. We want to keep control of us not losing our jobs, of us knowing our jobs. We are the experts in whatever, fundraising, I don't know. And we don't want AI to take control over it, because then we lose control and we don't know what's going to happen. By using the tool with somebody who guides you, by understanding better how it works, that fear of losing control starts to go away. Then people want to embrace it, people understand it, and that's how things get started.
That's true. And how do you think people, by doing what, they have this sense of control? Is it, as you mentioned, having someone who's guiding you and you know how to use it, but you can't have that someone all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. You can gain that by just using the tool, right? However, I think I see our role as AI Academy as trainers, the people who sell education, as kind of catalyst agents. So a catalyst is, this is a very nerdy metaphor. A catalyst in chemistry is an element that you add to a chemical reaction and makes the chemical reaction happen faster. Now, I was really bad at chemistry. Imagine, two elements merge in 2 days, you add the catalyst, they merge in 2 hours. And that's what we do. So by having somebody that guides your conversations, that helps you identify those use cases, that guides your brainstorming sessions even, or that guides your experimentation, then that change happens faster. And you're also safer as if I'm talking to a leader, I will say also you're safer. This adoption goes in the right way. What do I mean by that? Let's break this down a little bit. Let's say that you don't hire anybody like us to foster this experimentation. Okay, so then you're letting people experiment themselves, and maybe you're lucky, and people actually find out, spend enough time, enough energy, and they find out how to use ChatGPT or any other tool productively. Maybe, hopefully. I hope so. But maybe that doesn't happen. And maybe people use it in the wrong way and then get to the wrong conclusion. That's a risk that I will not want to take. What we do really is we are catalysts. We allow those understandings to happen faster. We allow those understanding to happen in a more nuanced way, I would say, because we bring in we have done all the work of thinking hard about, what are the things you should do, what are the things you should not do, what should you pay attention to, and so we put them on the table, and it happens in one day. In one day you got all those inputs, and then you start working. Really, what we do is the beginning of a journey, right? We don't transform your organization in one day. We kickstart that transformation, but you do that in a way that is faster, in a way that is more controlled, and you make sure that all the important things that you should think about are put on the table from day one. Mistake bias and ethical risks that everybody is very concerned about. If you wait for your employees to think about those things, they may do that or they may not. Do you want to risk that? Do you want to, say, rely on the intuition of people that are not AI professionals to identify those biases? I think it's better to hire somebody whose job is to talk about those biases, right? And just bring those conversations and kickstart those conversations in your company. That's really what I think we do.
Yeah, I think that sums it up quite well. Also, coming back to, fearing of the things that you don't understand about, I think what keeps a lot of people from starting with AI within the company is not knowing the risks. But once we help them and they know the risks for their company, then they take a step forward in any case. I think it's more about understanding what can happen, foreseeing a bit in the future, which they need to do in the company as well.
Yeah, and there is one thing that frustrates me a lot, which is the privacy risk. Oh, what's going to happen to my data? Come on, I'm very active in the field of AI ethics and all these things. So I do know that that's a big risk. However, people worry about it, but let's take 100 people that come to me and worry about this. How many of them have read the terms and condition and privacy policy of OpenAI? I will tell you, probably zero. Maybe 1 out of 100. So it's this fear that is not backed by knowledge. Oh, but they're going to use my data to retrain their models. No. If you use the API, they won't. And if you use ChatGPT, there is a switch. You just click, do not use my data for training. That's it. You're good to go, pretty much. And then a lot of people say, oh, but these AI companies, AI is going to know about my stuff. Well, do you use SharePoint? Yes. Well, then what do you want? You're already comfortable with sharing some of your information with another company. Now, I'm simplifying, obviously. I don't want people to listen to this or watch this and think, oh, Gianluca is saying that we shouldn't care. You should care. You should read your terms and conditions, but do that instead of worrying and complaining. Go and read, ask a lawyer, ask your legal team, hey, have you reviewed this? But to me, it's so wild. A lot of companies that we talk to, they haven't even started reading those terms and conditions. And then once they do, they end up realizing that it's not that risky in the end of the day. OpenAI has all the interests in making this safe for people. The more people use this, so the more people trust them, the more people use them, the more money they make. Obviously, they're not gonna steal your data. Why would they do that? They're gonna go in the EU, they're gonna get screwed. In the US, they're gonna get screwed because now there's new regulations coming up over there. They don't have any interest in doing sketchy, shady stuff. So once again, education is the key. If you understand what's going on behind the scenes, not just from a technical point of view, but also from a terms and condition point of view. We should put that in our trainings, actually. Okay, everybody, now go on openai.com/terms and condition. We're all going to read it together. It will be the most boring training, but it will actually help people. Knowledge is key here.
That's so true. I think what we see when people say, okay, but I don't want to put my data in there because I'm worried about it, it's not a decision, it's not a thought, it's not a concern, but a reaction. It's the first reaction that people naturally have towards something that they're not fully, they don't have a full trust in, let's say.
And it's very normal, by the way. This is just human behavior 101. I think with AI, it's a bit more difficult because there are a lot of emotions attached to it. We've all seen Terminator. We've all seen sci-fi. Not helping. Sci-fi has not helped. Basically, it's funny to think about this. The last 40 years of cinema has basically created so many biases around this technology, right? But it also kind of touches upon what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be a human being? Like, I think I'm special because I write really good marketing copy, because I am creative. And now I'm like, damn, this other thing. Then what am I? Why am I valuable? Like, I mean, I think we should do collective. I feel like sometimes I'm a therapist when I go and do those trainings. Like, I help people kind of walk through what is their place in the universe, given that AI is there. So it's normal. Like, I don't blame people for being scared or for being slow or for having fears. It's normal. It's fine, but just study it, and then either you're gonna confirm those fears and decide to not having anything to do with it, which usually is unlikely, or you're gonna understand how to use it, and then you're gonna be more productive and you know live a better life, hopefully. And if you're not up to date, if you don't listen to podcasts like this one, is a shameless plug, but it does make sense, right? If you don't listen to podcasts like this, if you're not subscribed to a newsletter, you may miss out something that may completely revolutionize the way that you work or the way that your business operates. I think that's a great message to close this. What do you think?
Think so as well. I think it's not. I don't even see it as a choice at this point. It's a must. If you have a passion, if you're following your dream, building something, working somewhere, whatever you do is under the risk of changing. And it's always great to be up to date, because then you need to also update yourself and your skills based on what's going on, which I think is, as you said, it's a good way to close this episode. Thank you so much for coming, Gianluca. It was a pleasure.